JavaScript, and I really like things in the physical world. And I find the ways of combining those two really interesting. Because so much of the time you have very abstract concepts in programming, and to actually see stuff change in the physical world from that is quite exciting. And so this sort of started a couple of years ago when I bought a kit for a CNC machine. And what this is it's a little milling machine that you can program and it will move around, and it can cut out shapes that you design digitally out of different materials. And so this process usually starts with really badly designed software where you define the paths and tell the machine how you want it to cut stuff out. And so when I was putting together this machine, I came across this project where the company that made the machine had cut out their logo, and they put some white LEDs behind it and some blue plexiglass, and made this really cool illuminated sign. And at the time, I was playing with these. These are NeoPixels by a company called Adafruit. And the way that these work is it's this long strip, and each LED is individually controlled, which means you can hook it up to a variety of different sources, and you can actually send different RGB values to each pixel, and you can control it over time, so you can animate it, you can do really interesting things there. And so I decided I wanted to make something with these, and I worked with a company called Civil, and they, this is their logo, and I decided I was going to make them a sign. And so over Christmas break, I had some plywood laying around, and I cut out their logo, and cut out a bunch of little pieces and sort of built it up, and put some clear acrylic in it, and glued it together with every clamp I could find. And then I took a Raspberry Pi, and I hooked up the NeoPixel strips to the Raspberry Pi. And if anyone doesn't know, the Raspberry Pi is a tiny little Linux computer, and it runs full Linux OS, and so you can put things on it like Node. And so I put Node on it, which let me write all of the code to control the LEDs all in JavaScript. And so I ended up with a little sign like this. Oh, it's not playing. It's not going to play my animation. All right. So what was great is that it let me do all of the animations with simple little functions where I could pass it in the time for where it is in time, and the function would then return an array of color values, and I could then send those out to the strip. The problem was that it was fairly slow to develop because I had to upload the file to the Raspberry Pi, reload Node, and see the lights change. And so I wanted a faster way of doing it. And so I ended up making this. Oh, good, it is playing. And so I made a little utility in the terminal where it would play my code, and it would just render it out as little colored bullets, and I could kind of preview what the animation would look like, and I could try lots of different stuff there. And I set it up so that I could just push new JSON data to it. I could tell it the type of animation I wanted it to do. I could tell it the colors that I wanted it to use, and it would update. And so we had the sign in our office, and people would come by, and I'd show it to them, and I'd show them, like, look, I can make an API call to it, I can update it, I can change it that way. And it was kind of a pain to actually go and make a new API call to it every time I wanted to change it. And so I decided I wanted an easier way to do that. And so I made a little iPhone app that lets you go in and change the colors, change the animation, and control the sign that way. And then it will send the data to the sign, and it'll update it. And the really nice thing about this is that it is, again, all in JavaScript. It's using React Native, which is a great framework for developing mobile apps that are basically native apps that are controlled by JavaScript. And so let me write nice, small React components to control the different things that way. And so after that, I ended up making a couple more designs for friends, and I learned a lot about sort of the process of doing it and found better ways that I wish I had done the first time. And I ran into a lot of limitations of the CNC machine that I had, and I wanted to make bigger things and more precise things. And so I recently decided it was time to get a much bigger machine. And so this is like 5 feet by 5 feet. It weighs like 600 pounds. It's really ridiculous, but it works really, really well. And so I decided it was time to remake the civil sign in a better way. And so I cut it out, made it larger, made it more precise. It ends up being 2 interlocking pieces. And I can put all the new pixels around it. I have a little Raspberry Pi in the center, kind of hidden in there. And we have that hanging up in our office. And it's worked really well. We can hook it up to different events. You know, for our backend, for example, if we have an issue, it can change the sign. If we get a new customer, it can change the sign. And we can do some fun stuff like that. And my wife was recently part of the hardware summit in town, and you know, so we were talking to them about the summit, and that would be really fun to make a sign for them as well. And so I ended up making this one, and it was really cool to see it up on stage. And we decided that after making all these signs for other people, we decided that we really wanted a sign for ourselves. And we're not the type of people that want to put our name in big letters on the side of our house or anything. And so, so we tried to figure out what could we do, what could we make something of. And so we looked at our wedding invitation actually, which we had this kind of low poly illustration that we had on there. And we thought like, oh, we could make a version of it like that. And so this is what it ends up with, which is I have right here. And the interesting thing about this was that I couldn't fit a Raspberry Pi in there, it was too small. And subsequently, Raspberry Pis actually come out with a small version that would fit in there, but that wasn't there when I made this. And so I ended up using this. And it's called Photon, it's by a company named Particle. And it's a little tiny Arduino board, and it's really nice because it maintains a Wi-Fi connection. They have a cloud backend that they use to communicate with it, so you can send, you can communicate with their API and they'll update the device itself. And so I let's see if I can use this instead of the Raspberry Pi. So the first step with that was hook it up to the LEDs and see if it worked, and it actually worked really well to drive the lights. And so I tested that out, I found that it worked. And then the next challenge was I realized that I had to rewrite the whole thing in C++, because Arduino runs in C++. And it was interesting. I mean, it's fairly similar to JavaScript in a lot of ways, but it's different enough to remind me why I really like JavaScript. And so after making my head against the wall for a few things, I was able to actually rewrite a bunch of animations in that and make a little sign. And one of it too was I wanted to make a heartbeat, you know, so you can make a heartbeat, and this was a really challenging type of animation to create. I first tried to do it programmatically, and after playing with a lot of sign functions, I couldn't figure out how to make anything that looked good, and I found that if I actually ended up animating this in After Effects the way that I kind of wanted it to look, and just exported numerical values, I could then play that and get a nice looking animation. So after all of that, I ended up with a sign that I could hang on my wall, and yeah, that was all.